Okay, I guess you all know why you're here today and why we're here. We'd like to introduce the new group of 14 astronauts that we've been in the process of selecting for about the last 4 months. As a preliminary, I might give you just a brief rundown on how we ended up with these 14 individuals. I think you're all familiar with what our basic criteria was this time versus the last. The only, what you might consider major change, was that we went to operational pilots with over 1,000 hours flight time. It did not require or make mandatory the requirement for experimental test pilot. Based on this criteria, we ended up with approximately 500 military and 225 civilian applications. Out of these, we ended up with 71 military recommended to us and 65 civilians who were eligible. We pre-screened this group, selected 34 out of it for interviews. In the process of the medical exams at Brooks, 6 of these were dropped as having medical problems which were unacceptable, which left us with 28. And out of that 28, we end up with this group of 14 you have today. The statistics on this group are service affiliation: 7 Air Force, 4 Navy, 1 Marine, and 2 civilians. We have 8 test pilots in the group. We have 1 PhD. We have 6 with masters, and another will have a master's by the time he comes on board. It may be of interest to note the comparative numbers with this group versus the last 2 that were selected, primarily the Mercury and a group we selected last year. The big difference is in total flying time, as you might expect. The Mercury group had 3,500 hours total at time of selection. The latest group has 2,300. The jet time, however, is higher on this group than on the Mercury group, and it's about the same as the last 9. The age, Mercury was 34 and a half at time of selection. The last group, 32 and a half, and this group is 30. And the other big factor is the educational background. Mercury averaged 4.3 years of college. The last group, 4.6. This group is 5.6. Okay, with that, I'll let each individual introduce himself from right to left.
I'm Major Edwin E. Aldrin, Jr., United States Air Force, from Montclair, New Jersey.
I'm Captain Bill Anders, Kirtland Air Force Base, New Mexico.
Captain Charles A. Bassett from Dayton, Ohio.
Lieutenant Alan Bean, Jacksonville, Florida, hometown, Fort Worth, Texas.
You got a good start. You said it.
Lieutenant Eugene Cernan, U.S. Navy, hometown Bellwood, Illinois, presently living in Monterey, California.
Lieutenant Roger B. Chaffee, U.S. Navy, hometown Grand Rapids, Michigan, presently stationed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio.
Captain Mike Collins, Air Force, Edwards Air Force Base, California.
R.W. Cunningham, civilian. I'm presently residing in Van Nuys, and my hometown is Santa Monica, California.
Captain Donn Eisele, Air Force, presently in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My hometown is Columbus, Ohio.
Captain Ted Freeman of the Air Force, stationed at Edwards Air Force Base, hometown Lewis, Delaware.
Lieutenant Commander Dick Gordon, stationed at Monterey Postgraduate School, hometown is Seattle, Washington.
Russell Schweickart, civilian, hometown is Lexington, Massachusetts.
Captain David Scott, U.S. Air Force, stationed at Edwards Air Force Base, California, hometown La Jolla, California.
Captain C.C. Williams, United States Marine Corps, stationed at Quantico, Virginia, hometown Mobile, Alabama.
Okay, we are open to questioning at this time. If nobody's got any questions.
Be a little more specific about when these men are coming to MSC and when they will become active members of the MSC staff here in Houston.
Yes, we anticipate them reporting for duty on the 3rd of February. They will probably be in town sometime before that to get their personal affairs in shape, but that is the date we intend to start working with them.
headquartered, Major Slayton?
We'll be operating out of Ellington Air Force Base. And I can't. If there are any hands up, I can't see them due to these lights. There you are.
Deke, how about asking them to start one by one and explain why they volunteered for this?
Carry on, Buzz.
Well, I'm not sure whether the fact that my mother's maiden name is Moon has anything to do with it or not. Seriously, while at school at MIT, I became quite fascinated with the field of rendezvous, and naturally the Gemini mission intrigued me quite a bit, and I've been devoting quite a bit of my attention to studying various types of guidance for rendezvous, and this just naturally led to my desire as a fighter pilot to extend my abilities into space and to try and couple the educational opportunities that I had into the engineering development of spacecraft.
Well, I think that there are many reasons why most of us got into the program. I'm sure one of them, as far as I was concerned, was the adventure involved. I think this will be one of man's terrific adventures, the trip to the moon and before. It's one of the reasons I joined up.
Well, I guess I'd echo Bill's sentiments. In addition, possibly it might be that being a test pilot has always been my desired profession. And this kind of appears to me like it's possibly the pinnacle of professional desire in this sort of field.
I've got to go along with Chuck on that. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a flyer and wanted to be a test pilot. And once I became one, this was the next step. And it certainly has interested me, and it looks like it's going to be a terrific program.
I think this is one of the most fascinating and challenging opportunities that's really ever come along to mankind in many, many, many generations. And to put it more precisely, I just feel that it's an aviator's dream to be able to be part of a mission such as the total manned spacecraft mission.
I'll go along with Gene on that. Speaking from the aviator standpoint, this is the pinnacle of all the jobs that comprise the flying game. And the field or the realm of aerospace and flying has always been a big part of my background and my family life, and it just was natural that I wanted to get into this field. And it's a real challenge to mankind and to all our abilities and the engineers' abilities in the program.
Well, I think that landing a man on the moon will be the greatest scientific achievement our country has ever known, and I'd like to be that man, or at least work on the same program with the man who does ultimately end up on the lunar surface.
I've spent the last several years working in space sciences and doing research on an unmanned satellite. I consider this a natural culmination of my training and education and background. I don't believe there's any more challenging job facing man today than manned space flight, and that's why I'm here.
I think it's a great adventure, probably the greatest adventure of mankind, at least in our century. It's also a logical extension of the test pilot's work, and it's also a chance to be of service, an unparalleled opportunity to serve the country.
My reasons are the same, of course. I think we're privileged to live in the era when man will do that of which he has dreamed for generations, for centuries even. And it will be a privilege to take part in any capacity, particularly as a pilot.
I knew by the time I got down here it'd be all answered. Nothing more to do but to echo the sentiments of the people ahead of us. I think this is a natural extension of our life's occupation. It's certainly the most challenging endeavor we are faced with to date, and I'm really pleased to be a part of it.
I think ever since I can remember, I've looked at the moon and had the desire to go there, but it's only been in recent years that I've realize that I stand a chance at actually doing it due to the galloping technology we find here in our country. It seems to me that this is the most exciting thing and perhaps the most important thing that this country and man has done in the last several centuries. And to be able to take part in it at this time is one of the most exciting things that could happen to a man living today.
I might just reiterate all the reasons everybody has put forth by this time, and they encompass just about everything that I desire in a program, primarily the challenge, the opportunity, and the ultimate goal that perhaps we'll reach the moon and find out why man is here and some of the reasons for our purpose on Earth. And also my interest in flying has led me to this position, and my academic background in astronautics being a normal extension also to get in the program.
Okay, I hope all the questions don't take that long to answer. Got one left to go yet? Oh, yeah.
I suppose all of us have boiled down to saying it's the pioneer spirit trying to know the unknown.
Okay, I guess that got to the end of the line. I'd appreciate it if you'd stand up and you ask a question, because I'm having great difficulty in seeing hands down there through the lights.
Dick, maybe you could speak for the group or have some of the group speak. Has there been any kind of a deal made for the personal stories of this third group of astronauts, or will there be, and what's the next step in that direction?
Okay, I'll pick up the ball on that one. The contract that was signed this fall, whatever the date was, had a provision to include any new group that came on board, so they are automatically included in this contract. That's correct.
Senator Fulbright has questioned the necessity for this moon race, Deke, and he says that this $40-some-odd billion being used in this program to try to get a man on the moon before the Russians, possibly by 1970, might better be used here to improve our economic conditions in this country. Would you comment on this?
Well, my obvious answer is I don't agree with him. And I think if you took the line of approach here that you did not spend any of this money on the moon, that doesn't mean that it's going to be spent on whatever anybody else has in mind. I think every program has to stand on its own merits. And you don't pull it out of one thing and automatically dump it to something else just because it then becomes available.
What is the military necessity for this?
The military necessity for the moon? I missed that part of your question.
That's right, for the moon race.
Frankly, I'm not sure what the military necessity is. I don't know that we fully realize at this point in time just what we are going to get out of the moon or not get out of it. I think you can envision some military uses for the moon, but that is not the purpose of our program at this time as far as I'm aware of.
You said this live field contract automatically covers this group.
Yes, sir.
Is that with or without their permission? Isn't it possible that they might not want to peddle their personal story?
Okay, this is correct. This is strictly.
You want to ask them about it?
I don't think we want to ask them about it here, no. I think this is their option, and they'll have to make a decision somewhere along the line. I wouldn't want to ask them to do it today.
Would you ask each of them to state their religious preference?
Yes, sir. You want to start at the left end of the line?
No religious preference.
Roman Catholic.
Presbyterian.
Moravian.
No religious preference. My parents are Lutheran.
Episcopalian.
Presbyterian.
Roman Catholic.
Methodist.
Protestant, no religious preference otherwise.
Roman Catholic.
Protestant in general. I was brought up in a congregational church.
Question, Mr. Bassett, if you're all right. Just in your opinion, how important is a science degree to an astronaut?
Would you run that by once again, a little slower and a little louder?
How important is a science degree to the astronaut? a science degree?
Well, I
in
think it would be
science,
pretty
biology?
important just because it will give him an understanding of what he's doing and why. He must know how to talk to people, particularly the learned engineers and scientists that he will be discussing problems with. I think it's important to be able to have a common bond of understanding.
Yes, sir.
Could you estimate how many astronauts you'll need, say, by 1970?
By 1970, the best answer I can give you is that based upon the programs that are now on the boards and being worked on, this group today brings us up through the conclusion of those programs. We assume there will be other programs generated over the years, and of course we will need additional people to cover them. We don't assume that the first lunar landing will be the end of the manned space program by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, you mentioned another selection in 65.
This is correct. We are assuming we will need additional people by then. The programs will be more clearly defined at that point in time, and we can then establish a requirement.
Would it be possible to know the fellow's Boy Scout background, please?
I think so. CC, you want to start that one?
Yes, I was in the Boy Scouts for 3 years, and I attained the rank of a Life Scout with some 15 merit badges.
My career is just about the same as CC's. I was about 3 years in the Boy Scouts with a Life Scout rating.
I was in for about 2 years until the troop folded.
I was a Boy Scout and attained the rank of Star Scout.
I was a Boy Scout, and my promotions were about as limited as they have been in the Air Force.
Very good. I was a long timer. I was in the Scout movement for about 6 years. I was an Eagle Scout with 30-some merit badges, as I recall, and I was also in the Senior Air Scout program.
I'm the first non-scout.
I'm sorry to say I'll have to join Walt in that.
I was in the Boy Scouts for about 7 years, attained the rank of Eagle Scout, and worked as an assistant scoutmaster for a couple of years.
I was a Boy Scout for about 3 years, but my merit badges, I'm afraid, were limited.
I was a Boy Scout for about 2 years, first class, several merit badges.
I was a Boy Scout. A Life Scout.
I was also a Life Scout.
I was just a Boy Scout for a fairly short period of time. I feel that 7 summers that I spent at camp in Maine fulfilled many of the same things that I would have gained from scouting.
Do these astronauts have any particular field they want to go into, such as the Gemini project or the Apollo project, or any particular area of interest that they come into this, into NASA and the Manned Spacecraft Center?
Well, sir, we selected them to fly Gemini and Apollo, primarily, because these are the two programs we have in being.
Well, I meant their personal interests in that particular sense.
Well, we hope their personal interest is in both, because that's what we hired them for. If you're talking about the technical areas of responsibility, the breakdown within the programs, I don't think we'll make any decisions along those lines for approximately 4 months after they've been brought on board. We'd like to give them a feel for what the programs consist of and find something that appeals to them more than something else.
Could you possibly outline how they will fit into the Apollo and Gemini programs, and will they be, say, for instance, fly latter stage Gemini missions into Apollo?
Yes, Warren, they'll be integrated into the rest of the group that we have on board at the present time, and we'll use them in the same way. Of course, as you know, we do have people that have more experience in hand right now, and I wouldn't expect any of these gents to fly the first Gemini flight as an example, but we will expect them to fly Gemini flights later on down the line and Apollo flights, the same as the rest of the group. It'll be an integrated operation. We're working with a total pool of 30 pilots now instead of 16, I think is the best way to put it.
How do you intend to work the systems engineering training into the Gemini program, or rather into the Apollo program. Will these men be specifically given systems engineering responsibility?
Yes, sir. At some point in time, we will have to designate an individual as a systems engineer for a specific flight. And, of course, at that point in time, he will then concentrate more on that phase of the job than any other part of it and become an expert as far as that crew is concerned.
Flight thing.
I would think so. This is one we haven't really completely resolved yet. It's a little ways down the road, and we've got a lot of systems to define here, yet we're not really sure what the job really consists of at this point in time.
I'd like to ask Captain Williams, do you plan in the near future to change your status as NASA's first and only bachelor astronaut?
Not in the immediate future, no.
Deke, how do you feel on the joint Soviet-U.S. moonshot possibility?
The possibilities? Well, I think anything is a possibility. I think if we ever attempt to do it, it's going to have some major problems in conjunction with it. From a technical point of view, we've got the prime problem of integrating an interface, and we have a major problem within this country of getting the interface between a booster and a spacecraft, for example, defined and worked out in any great detail. We start talking in terms of working with a different set of basic dimensions even, such as going from a metric to the English. You can envision it being quite a complex problem of coordination. I would not say it can't be done. I would say it would take an extreme amount of coordination between the people involved.
Any of the boys speak Russian?
No Russians.
It's a good start.
See if I can see. I don't see any other hands up back there. Or do we assume there are no? Oh.
Was there any budget limitation that resolved it to just 14 people instead of more?
A budget limitation?
Yeah.
No, sir. It was based strictly upon our best evaluation of our requirements, based on what we know about the programs at this point in time, over the long haul.
You knew you were going to have 14 at the beginning?
Yes, we did.
Would you mind telling us briefly what these gentlemen did all morning, what you briefed them on, and what they had to do when they got together here?
Well, I'd hate to take all afternoon to go over what I went over this morning, but the primary object of getting them together this morning was one reason, public relations-wise, to get some photographs of them, to get some film of them and so forth for distribution. I don't know if it's going out to Eugene or where. And my motive in getting them together this morning was to give them a little more detailed rundown of our internal operations here at MSC than they've had in the past, to let them know exactly what we expected of them and what we expected to do with them once we got them on board. I think that generalizes it fairly well without getting into all the fine details.
All of these men have their, or rather acquired their flying time as a result of service training, or were some of them pilots, with the exception of Mr. Cunningham, I believe, were some of them civilian pilots prior to getting into service? And are they multi-engine rated, any of them?
Okay, since we have two civilian pilots, I'm sure those are the ones you're referring to. I'll let them speak for themselves. Well,
I was a Marine Corps aviator for 4.5 years. I've spent the last 7.5 years in the Marine Corps Reserve. I have 2,100 hours total time and about 1,350 hours in jets.
I may be the only person here that got out of the Air Force twice. I was in for 4 years after I left MIT through ROTC. I flew F-100s there. And I then joined the Mass Air Guard when I got out of the Air Force back at MIT and was recalled a year later during the Berlin contingency. I am now again in the Mass Air Guard, although that will end again pretty sure.
The Eugene this morning said that the 7 original astronauts will be too old to go to the moon. I want to know if this is true, first of all. And secondly, another story in the same paper said that the 7 original astronauts will be in the Gemini, and that some of these men will be the second pilot in the Gemini.
All right, sir, to take the first one first, we never have and don't intend to admit that we're too old to fly anything. And we have never set an age criteria on our flight crews. We have applied what we think is a reasonable attrition. We know that people are going to develop physical defects as they get older. It's just a natural human process. But we don't think the age in itself is a realistic thing to work with as a cutoff. It should be an individual thing. So the best I can say is that if we have Mercury pilots that are in as good condition as any of the rest of them at the time of the moon shot, they'll probably be on it. And your second part, I believe, was their participation in Gemini, and they will participate in Gemini. We have not selected crews for Gemini flights yet. I wouldn't guarantee you that all Mercury pilots would be first pilots and these gents co-pilots. It could possibly end up the other way around.
Could we know, please, who makes up the selection board?
I'd prefer not to discuss that. I think we treat this the same as we do a source selection board for any other resource within the program, and I don't think the board can be objective if they're worried about what somebody might think of their decisions.
Could you tell us when and how the group was got the final word that they were selected? And number 2, are they all wearing little lapel pins? You can't see them from down here. Tell us what those lapel pins are.
You were asking why they have a lapel pin on?
What is the lapel pin? Everybody has a lapel pin.
The lapel pin is a Gemini space.
They were notified that they were selected.
They were notified on Monday by telephone by me.
Which one of the gentlemen holds a PhD?
Major Aldrin on your far left. Do you have any more questions?
Did you get any unusual replies when you talked to them on the phone and informed them?
Well, I think it was obvious they were all pretty excited about it. Had a little trouble with someone being coherent for a couple seconds. But obviously they were all highly enthused about it.
Are there any of the men's parents here at this meeting today?
Any what?
Any of the men's parents here or wives?
I can't answer that. Anybody?
Father-in-law are here, Mr. and Mrs. Ragsdale, that are sitting out there in the audience.
I was wondering, where have you had the people quartered, and do you plan to have a social affair for them and MSC management get together tonight, or before they go back to their homes?
No, at the conclusion of the conference, they are completely free to do whatever they wish. They can go back to their homes, or they can stay around Houston over the weekend and look around for housing. It's strictly their individual choice. We do not have anything programmed with MSC management. We did have a meeting with them at the time of the selection. They're at the conclusion of it. Yes, sir.
Dick, has the Air Force indicated in any way that they will use your experience and background in training pilots for their work in Gemini?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understood it. You say...
Has the Air Force indicated any desire to use the NASA training techniques and elimination techniques in training personnel for their portion of the Gemini program?
Okay. No, they have not. I presume at such time as the Air Force gets an active program going to the extent that we have, that they will be quite interested. As you know, they have the aerospace school running at Edwards now. In fact, quite a number of these gentlemen are students or graduates of that school. And I would expect that at some later date that we would have more liaison along these lines.
Deke, have the gentlemen chosen a spokesman yet?
I don't think so. I didn't know that any of our groups had ever chosen a spokesman.
Seems that way.
Are all the wives of the chosen astronauts in favor of their having been chosen as astronauts? We understand there is one bachelor astronaut here, but all the married astronauts' wives, are they all in favor? Are they giving us support?
Well, I think we'd have to ask each individual on that one. I'm going to start in with Buzz on your far left.
My wife was quite overjoyed at the announcement of my selection.
Mine was also quite enthusiastic about it.
Same.
I believe mine was the same way. I called her up just a short time ago, and she could hardly talk to me on the phone.
I think this is a natural question in most people's minds. It was mine. My wife was 2,000 miles away this summer when I found out that I was even in consideration for this program, and I called her up, and she was overwhelmed with joy, which certainly is warming to the individual involved. It was to me. My wife was here in Houston. Yes, sir.
My wife has always been very enthusiastic about my flying program and flying career, and I think the excitement and the emotional strain of this program got to her more than it did me, really. And just like Al said, when we finally found out, my wife could hardly talk.
I haven't seen my wife since I found out the news myself. I was off on a trip, but she sounded pretty enthusiastic on the telephone.
My wife was surprised, pleased, and relieved.
My wife is very enthusiastic. She's been very excited since we found out that I was to be assigned here. Actually, this is a kind of a program that you couldn't very well take part in without the full and complete support of your wife.
Of course, my wife was enthusiastic too, and I give her credit for me being here today.
I think... How was that?
Trying to get rid of it?
I'm sure that none of us would be here without their concurrence. My wife has been behind me and has concurred in all of the important decisions that we have had to make during our lifetime.
Well, when this all started out, my wife didn't think I had a chance with the spelling of my name here. You can't have an astronaut with the name of Schweickart. But when it got to the point where I might be chosen, she was very enthusiastic, and in the end, I think she'd have been more disappointed than I if I hadn't made it.
As I believe it is with all of us, my wife was 100% behind me and the program.
Well, none of my lady friends have none have voiced any objection to my getting out away from here.
Do we have any other questions?
Deke, do you have any theoretical washout rate considered in this program, the astronaut training program?
For the training program?
Yes.
No. We don't assume we're going to lose anybody during the training program. We don't assume we're going to lose them in space flight either.
From here.
Do we have any other questions?
Deke, do you have any theoretical washout rate considered in this program, the astronaut training program?
For the training program?
Yes.
No. We don't assume we're going to lose anybody during the training program. We don't assume we're going to lose them in space flight either. We think the thing we're probably going to lose people on is physical examinations more than any one thing.
Well, then you don't select numbers considering an overage on the basis that some.
Yes, we have a question. I'm sorry. Yeah, we've selected more than we'd have to. In other words, we've got more people than we need to plug in on a flight-to-flight basis. We've got to have a question for just general planning purposes.
Is there a figure or a number for that?
Oh, I guess a good estimate would be about 10%. There's a number of things you have to think about here, and it's all pretty arbitrary. We don't have any background information to establish one on, obviously. there any other questions?
Okay, Deke, I think they're all out of, they all have questions? Here we are.
One more, Deke. There. What do you envision will be the training program for the third group of men by the time they get on board for, say, the first 6 months or a year?
Okay, it'll be quite similar to the way we started off the last group of 9. We anticipate around 4 to 5 months of fairly intensive academic training in the field of astronautics, orbital mechanics, selenology, the whole business that we've already gone through that you're aware of. And in conjunction with this, we will give them systems briefings on the systems that we are flying, bring them up to speed on the spacecraft and the boosters, and have some orientation tours around to the various facilities that are manufacturing these things. So this will consume about the first 5 months, and then from that point we'll get on into the integration, into the design type integration that the rest of us are engaged in now.
By the time this 6 months is over with, or is the Apollo design not set that definitely yet?
No, none of these things ever get set in concrete up to the day you fly them. It's a continuous process, and even after you fly them, you change them based on what you learned on that flight. So it's a continuous effort.
Speaking of integration, was there a Negro boy in the last 30 or so that you brought here for consideration?
No, there was not. Okay, I guess we're through, Paul.
Yeah, well, we wanted to break out for some stills here, and there may be some people who want to get special things, but let's give the stills about 10 minutes. And I think there was one request for a line of 2 out front here, and also something on the stairs. In the interest of safety, I think we ought to push these desks back a little bit, or that attrition rate may set in now. Got any able-bodied stagehands over there? Yeah.
That's Hurley. Good to see you, Deke. Deke, to these files, I just wanted to ask you. I have mine, no, well, I just, thought if anything came up, I can work through you or bring it up to you. No, I don't know. I just want to meet you. We met at Mr. Johnson, but I just want to know. He does, I'll work for you. Thanks, dude.
We're on board out down here, so I can drop in.
What is the day? Do you know? 18.
Maybe like you don't just look like that.
Take that. You might get that.
Hey, gentlemen, look over here, please. That's it.
Aldrin? Yeah.
Al, can I chat with you once you get off here? Al. Yeah. Where's the door?
No, not specifically. This group, we've got some guys in this they're the ones with the lower education level, and all of them that are not first class, so it's you've got a pretty strong both pretty good in both areas. There wasn't any, this guy is the other one. He doesn't have an awful lot of flying.
Say, John, congratulations.
Hey,
I'm
hi,
glad to
good
see
to
you're
see
a
you.
new
How are you,
astronaut.
Doc? Yeah.
I'm real glad to see you up here.
Oh, yeah. Major. PhD and all. Yeah. How you doing?
Fine. And you?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
Well, we're working with it.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Fine.
Okay, Chuck.
Mr. Slade. Mr. Slade. Go ahead.
So anyway, we've got work to do on that one.
Why don't you just let me keep it? I have to leave the cars. I'm not locked in the security. Yeah, no, I just want to. No, the only thing is.
Hey, no, buddy. Good to see you. No, Val says the only thing that has to happen is if they can pick up on the way you guys did and the way south. How you doing, Dave? Hi, Ron.
Yeah. Right.
We'll see you later.
Old time batting down there.
Is that my hammer?
You're supposed to pick up the cards. You're supposed to pick up the cards. Pick them up for you. You're supposed to. Oh, no. Someone else will do it. Who made it on the TV?